Hans-Joachim Marseille might not be a household name. However, he was one of the most feared German pilots during World War II. He reportedly shot down over 150 aircraft over the course of 382 combat missions. And today, we'll examine the fate of 3 pilots that attempted to take down Marseille, one of the true aces of the infamous Luftwaffe. Background: Marseille was born in Berlin, Germany in 1919. His descendants fled France and settled in Germany because they were Protestants living in a Catholic country. Marseille's parents divorced when he was young, so Marseille lived with his mother and stepfather. And when he contracted influenza during his youth, he nearly lost his life. As a youngster, Marseille was classically trained on the piano. He had a love for music, especially American jazz. Although he enjoyed playing the piano and listening to music, Marseille was a rebellious young man. While in school, Marseille was viewed as a lazy student, always getting into trouble. But somehow, he changed his focus, and at 17 he graduated with high marks. The next step for Marseille was the German military. The bad boy persona and moments of laziness didn't cease once he enlisted. While in the military, Marseille found his passion with flight. His birth father was in the military and recommended Marseille for flight training. And he requested to join the Luftwaffe. Fellow students and instructors were in awe of Marseille's skills. There was talent, but there was also a blatant disregard for rules and regulations. And one of the biggest issues with Marseille was his alleged drunkenness. Marseille wasn't afraid to toss back a few drinks the night before a flight. He would show up inebriated or nursing a massive hangover. It's rumored that he landed his plane during a training mission without permission because he had to urinate so bad. Apparently, Marseille had decided to party the night before the flight, and his actions were viewed as a major offense. It could have resulted in a court-martial. However, reprimands never got through to Marseille. Instead, the instructors learned to live with the rebellious pilot. They knew they had a gifted pilot in their ranks. And all they needed to do was to get it through Marseille's head that the military life was one of discipline. He went on to graduate in July 1940, despite his behavioral issues and blatant disregard for the rules. And he was then assigned to his first mission, one involving the invasion of Britain. Luftwaffe. During the late 1930s, the Luftwaffe was perhaps the largest and most intimidating air force in the world. Some 1,800 aircraft and some 20,000 personnel made up the Luftwaffe. They had their first taste of combat during the Spanish Civil War, and by the summer of 1940, they were ready to smash the mighty Isle of Britain. It was over Kent, England, on August 24, 1940, when Marseille had his first kill while piloting a Messerschmitt Bf 109. In true Marseille fashion, he disregarded orders and broke from formation to pursue a British Hurricane Mk1 fighter. And when Marseille returned to base, he was praised by his commander. But the same commander then reprimanded him for breaking formation and pursuing the British pilot. German officers understood that while Marseille was a gifted pilot, he was also a lousy teammate. That encounter left a major impression on the young Marseille. He wrote in a letter to his mother, "Today I shot down my first opponent. It does not sit well with me." He went on to say that he kept thinking about the mother of the pilot he killed and how she would react when she found out her son was dead. He struggled with the guilt of his first victory, stating, "I am to blame for this death." Then, in September of 1940, Marseille almost lost his own life near the Straits of Dover in England. Marseille's aircraft suffered major damage during a mission. He tried to radio his position, but it was no use. So, Marseille had no choice but to eject himself from the plane. He landed in the water, and it took 3 grueling hours of paddling to stay alive. Marseille was rescued, but had to be hospitalized for exposure and exhaustion. Although he earned victories in the skies, Marseille was a complete handful when he was away from duty. When he wasn't taking down enemy aircraft, Marseille frequented bars and earned himself a reputation as a notorious ladies' man. And some of his most colorful tales occurred when he was stationed in France. There's a story about Marseille where he stole an officer's car to drive into town to drink and meet girls. He apparently had romantic flings with the wives and girlfriends of powerful people in the German military and Nazi party. One officer recalled he was tempestuous, temperamental, and unruly. 30 years later, he would have been called a playboy. But due to his impressive reputation in the skies, Marseille would receive a mere slap on the wrist for his transgressions. His actions were a problem, but his opinions about German politics were far more controversial. It was no secret that Marseille was anti-Nazi, and he had no issue being dismissive of Hitler. Marseille would become one of the most feared pilots of the Luftwaffe. His reign of terror was 2 years, but it's reported that Marseille shot down a total of 158 aircraft. And one of his biggest accomplishments was shooting down 15 aircraft in one day. Marseille would aim for enemy planes and would shoot from the nose to the engine. But apparently, he wouldn't aim for the cockpit. There are tales of Marseille flying beside the planes he'd seriously damaged to show pilots where to land safely. While these stories and statistics are fascinating, the legacy of Marseille would continue in North Africa. And it was there where he solidified his career as a top German ace. Would you ever consider going to pilot school? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Conquest of North Africa. During World War II, Germany and Italy focused their attention on taking North Africa. They wanted to control the Suez Canal, so Britain wouldn't be able to get supplies to their colonies. Additionally, controlling North Africa would mean that Germany and Italy would have access to oil reserves. But Britain and France weren't about to lose North Africa, and the fighting that ensued was brutal, to say the least. Due to his escapades in France, Marseille was sent to North Africa in 1941. But the moment he stepped on African soil, it seemed he'd already clashed with his superiors. However, it would be North Africa where Marseille would turn into a superstar. One person who served with the pilot stated, "If there had been girls in Africa, I do not think he would have had such success." Old habits traveled with the ace, and once again, he broke formation to shoot down an enemy plane. For this, he'd be reprimanded when he returned to base. Marseille was so unorthodox that he was sent out at times on missions with one accompanying aircraft. But punishment didn't deter the brash young pilot. Then, in North Africa, Marseille had yet another brush with death. While on a mission, Marseille encountered French pilot James Denis, and Marseille's aircraft was fired upon by Denis. Several bullets barely missed him, so he was alive, but his aircraft was seriously damaged. By some miracle though, Marseille made a safe landing. Denis and him would meet again, however, and Marseille was beaten a second time. But he walked away relatively unscathed from another close call with bullets and a crash landing. Eventually, Marseille's popularity as a pilot earned him the opportunity to meet Hitler and his top Nazi advisors. Marseille was asked to play piano, so he decided to do something incredibly brazen. He performed a jazz piece, which was considered degenerate music in Germany and was outlawed. Another man would have faced punishment, but once again, Marseille succeeded in enraging his superiors without receiving any consequences. Showdown. When it really came down to it, Marseille wasn't all fun and games. It's reported that he took time in North Africa to improve his skills as a pilot. He would spend time studying the enemy from intelligence that was gathered, and he even spent days improving his marksmanship and sharpening his fighting tactics. Also, in a shocking turn of events, Marseille gave up alcohol. He exercised and purposely exposed his eyes to the desert sun. He wanted to always have the advantage while in the sky. But perhaps the biggest change was that Marseille was allowed to fly on missions with only a single accompanying aircraft. In June 1942, Marseille encountered South African Air Force or SAAF pilots Robin Barr, Cecil Golding and Louis Botha near Bir Hakeim in Libya. The South African pilots were part of a squadron sent out to deal with German bombers in the area, and one of the German planes on that mission was piloted by Marseille. The day started off poorly for the SAAF fighters. what was supposed to be a squadron of 14 was quickly whittled down to just 11 planes. 2 of the planes crashed into each other while attempting to take off from the runway, and another plane had engine trouble and was sent back to base. The SAAF planes that went into the skies that day were supposed to have top cover from their comrades, but that didn't happen, so a showdown was inevitable. Parr was a seasoned pilot and had been serving for the SAAF since 1940, and Golding was a young pilot that had joined the SAAF in 1941. He was a tough pilot that had shot down enemy aircraft but had survived various crash landings. Botha was the most experienced of the 3, having earned his wings in 1939. All 3 men were flying aircraft that was considered outdated and inferior to the aircraft used by the Germans. The SAAF were reportedly outnumbered, but they took on the Germans anyway. Details of this encounter are disputed. Marseille claimed that he easily shot down 6 of the SAAF aircraft while they were flying in a defensive circle, including those piloted by Parr, Golding and Botha. Parr died when his plane exploded, but both Golding and Botha were able to land their heavily damaged planes safely. The SAAF may have taken down 1 German aircraft during this battle, but that was nothing compared to what Marseille was able to do single-handedly. His plane's cannon even faded while in the air, making his record that day all the more impressive. Golding was interviewed in 2011, however, and he stated that Marseille's claims weren't factual. Golding said that Marseille couldn't know for certain if he'd shot down 6 planes during an intense fight. This battle was just another chapter in the book of a feared German ace, and Marseille would go on to rack up 100 kills as a pilot. He would be one of only 11 German pilots at the time to hold that kill record. A legend is lost. Marseille was highly decorated and referred to as the Star of Africa, but because of this honor, he feared he'd be taken away from his missions and sent around Germany on a propaganda tour. Unfortunately for him, his fears proved true, as he was sent away for that exact thing, and it wasn't easy being in the spotlight. Marseille continued to defy his officers and the Nazi Party. And while in Africa, Marseille befriended South African prisoner of war Matthew Letulu, who went by the name Matthias. The friendship went against Nazi policies. Letulu was black and Marseille was white, and he had no problem defying racial segregation statutes. He would tell his fellow pilots and officers, "Where I go, Matthias goes." And this wasn't the only time that Marseille defied party politics. There was a time when Marseille went AWOL while in Germany. Marseille had friends and neighbors who were Jewish, and he was horrified to learn what had happened to them. The incident broke him, and the German secret police were then forced to track him down. Marseille, the hero, was starting to crack. As the war progressed, the Germans were suddenly becoming overmatched by the Allies, but Marseille continued his reign of terror in the skies. And on September 1st, 1942, Marseille shot down a reported 17 planes in one day. 8 of those were said to have taken place in less than 10 minutes. By the end of the month, he was involved in another mission that saw him taking out 7 more aircraft. This battle had driven Marseille to the point of exhaustion. He recalled one of the pilots being exceptionally skilled, stating, "He was the best one so far. He nearly got me." And at the time, Marseille's total tally was 158. There were reports of him sleepwalking and experiencing numerous nightmares. And it's believed that he may have been suffering from PTSD while still serving as a pilot. Marseille would make his last flight on September 30th, 1942, near Sidi Abdul Rahman, Egypt. His aircraft experienced engine trouble and Marseille had no choice but to eject. Something went wrong though, and his body violently slammed into the vertical stabilizer on his plane. His parachute also failed to deploy, so Marseille fell to the ground and he died on impact. In the book, The Star of Africa, the story of Hans Marseille, a doctor that attended to Marseille was reported to have said the finely cut features of his face below a high forehead were nearly undisturbed. The doctor then compared Marseille's face to that of a tired child. In the end, Marseille's death wasn't at the hands of an Allied pilot. it was his own malfunctioning plane that sealed his fate. He was buried at a cemetery for German soldiers in Libya, but he'd be reinterred at another Libyan cemetery in 1989. A ceremony was held for Marseille, and in attendance was Matthias Letulu. Surprisingly, Letulu survived being a prisoner of the Germans. When the most senior German ace, Adolf Galland, was asked about Marseille, he replied he was the unrivaled virtuoso among the fighter pilots of World War II. His achievements were previously considered impossible. However, there are some that question the number of kills claimed by Marseille. An article published on HistoryNet.com did question the claims of Marseille. According to fighter combat author Robert Shaw, in the heat of combat, you can't waste time verifying claims. He then goes on to say that your mind can play tricks on you when your life is in danger. Shaw explained that you can see smoke coming out of an aircraft, or it can even seem like pieces are falling off a plane. But if you follow that airplane and watch it until it crashes, you're gonna get shot down by somebody else. The same article noted that German pilots were part of a fly till you die policy. But that wasn't a policy that the US implemented. Also, Marseille's kill record was far more impressive than any Allied pilot. In conclusion, Marseille's life was a tapestry of complexity, characterized by a larger-than-life persona that encompassed both moments of honor and periods of womanizing indulgence. But despite the contradictions that shaped his existence, his enduring legacy is one that will remain forever in history. The magnitude of his achievements in such a remarkably short span is unlikely to be paralleled, leaving behind a void that may never be filled by another pilot of his caliber. Do you believe the record of Marseille? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.